the impossible trajectory. It began as a flicker, barely more than a whisper of light slipping across the Hawaiian sky. Within minutes, telescopes in Chile confirmed it, a massive object far beyond the orbit of Neptune, moving faster than any known comet. Its trajectory defied every model, carving through the void with unnatural precision. At first, astronomers thought it was a sensor glitch, but as data poured in, one truth became undeniable. This wasn't just another interstellar visitor. It was following something. The readings aligned perfectly with the path of 3I Atlas, the mysterious wanderer from beyond our solar system. And for the first time in human history, an object from another star wasn't just passing through. It was pursuing. What if these aren't coincidences at all? What if the cosmos itself is trying to say something? Through motion, through silence, through the impossible. Setting the stage. The interstellar visitors before 2017, humanity believed our solar system was an island, isolated, untouched by travelers from the stars. Then came One-Eye Oumuamua, a sliver of rock unlike anything ever seen. It tumbled through space with a strange, flattened shape, accelerating as if propelled by something unseen. Scientists scrambled to explain it. Comet, asteroid, alien probe, no theory fit perfectly. And before answers could be found, it was gone, vanishing into the dark like a messenger that never stayed to speak. 2 years later, Borisov arrived, this time undeniably a comet, venting gas and dust as it passed our sun. Its presence confirmed what was once only speculation. Interstellar visitors were real, and the galaxy was far more connected than anyone had imagined. Then came 2024, and the discovery of 3I Atlas. It was different. Its orbit was erratic, its brightness inconsistent, and its chemical signature didn't match anything local. Astronomers described it as a paradox, too reflective, too fast, too deliberate. Some claimed it was a remnant of a shattered planet. Others whispered of something engineered. But no one, not even the most imaginative theorists, expected what came next. A second object hundreds of times larger, tracing a path that would intersect directly with 3I Atlas. The odds were beyond comprehension, an event so statistically impossible it bordered on deliberate design. In the silence of space, these three names, Oumuamua, Borisov, Atlas, had become chapters in a growing cosmic mystery. And as telescopes tracked the giant newcomer closing in on 3I Atlas, one chilling realization began to surface. Maybe these weren't isolated visitors at all. Maybe something out there was sending them, each one part of a story we were only beginning to read. The arrival of the giant, the first full data stream came through on a cold night in January, and what it revealed silenced every observatory that received it. The object wasn't just large, it was colossal. Early measurements suggested it was nearly 100 times the size of 3I Atlas, moving with an elegance that defied the chaotic paths typical of comets or asteroids. It didn't tumble, it didn't spin. It drifted, smooth and controlled, as if guided by purpose rather than gravity. Infrared arrays captured something even stranger. The object wasn't reflecting sunlight the way space debris normally does. Instead, it glowed faintly from within, a steady pulse of radiation that fluctuated in perfect intervals. Every telescope across the planet confirmed the same anomaly. This thing was emitting energy. And whatever it was, that energy didn't match any known thermal or chemical process. At first, astronomers suspected instrumentation error. They recalibrated sensors, cross-checked data with satellites, even turned to deep space probes for verification. The results were the same. The object's light curve revealed patterns, a modulation too precise, too deliberate to be random. It wasn't just behaving like a celestial body. It was performing orbital modeling added another layer of unease. Its path through the solar system was neither parabolic nor hyperbolic. It was adaptive. Subtle course corrections appeared in the data. as if it were adjusting itself to match the trajectory of 3I Atlas. Some researchers called it a gravitational resonance. Others whispered a more unsettling word: guidance. By mid-February, the International Astronomical Union gave it an informal designation, Hyper-Rogue X1, a placeholder for something they couldn't yet name. Reports described it as a potential planetary fragment, the broken heart of a world torn apart eons ago. But deep down, many suspected it wasn't natural at all. Spectroscopic analysis returned results that should have been impossible. Traces of materials that don't exist on the periodic table, crystalline lattices with perfect symmetry, no sign of erosion or impact scars. It was as if the object had been built, not born, and the most haunting discovery came last. Its internal heat signature was rising. Faint but steady, synchronized to every movement of 3I Atlas. Whatever it wasn't sleeping. It was responding. NASA's silence and the European leak. Within days of the object's confirmation, NASA's public channels went quiet. The agency that once streamed every comet and asteroid encounter suddenly stopped sharing live telemetry. Press briefings were postponed, data archives went offline, and every mention of the object vanished from official feeds. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. Something had changed, not in the sky, but in the silence that followed it. Independent astronomers noticed the blackout first. Forums lit up with confusion as telescope networks that normally collaborated with NASA received quiet instructions to pause data relay. The Kindheit, few who ignored the message began to compare notes, and what they found spread faster than any official statement ever could. The object wasn't alone. From an observatory in the Canary Islands, leaked files from the European Southern Observatory revealed a set of encrypted documents labeled vector synchronization. Event. Inside were fragments of transmission logs showing fluctuating electromagnetic readings between the new object and 3I Atlas. The frequencies weren't natural. They pulsed in rhythm, echoing like two beacons calling to each other across millions of kilometers. When journalists contacted NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory for comment, they received carefully worded denials. No anomalous data consistent with artificial modulation has been detected. But just hours later, one scientist from the European Space Agency, speaking under anonymity, contradicted that statement, claiming that both objects had displayed coherent resonance for nearly 16 minutes before the signal abruptly ceased. Then, a file surfaced on a private astronomy forum. Its metadata traced back to a government network in Brussels. The document contained one line that unsettled everyone who read it. Object X1 and 3I Atlas exhibit synchronized course correction within 0.002 deviation, potential coordinated behavior. The post vanished within hours. Accounts were deleted, but by then screenshots had already spread worldwide. NASA still said nothing. No press conferences, no explanations, only silence. And in that silence, the question grew louder than ever. If they weren't denying it anymore, were they watching it? Or waiting for what came next? The mathematical coincidence that shouldn't exist in astronomy, numbers rarely lie. Every orbit, every trajectory, every gravitational interaction can be traced back to mathematics, the cold, predictable rhythm of the universe. But when researchers began comparing the paths of 3I Atlas and Hyper-Rogue X1, those numbers broke their own rules. On paper, the odds of two interstellar objects entering the same solar system within a human lifetime were already infinitesimal, roughly 1 in 10 trillion. But the chance of both aligning on intersecting trajectories within a margin of error smaller than a pin's width bordered on the impossible. The equations simply refused to balance. Simulations were run thousands of times. Each attempt produced the same improbable result. The two objects would pass within just a few thousand kilometers of each other. a cosmic near-miss so exact that random physics couldn't explain it. If gravity alone was responsible, it would require a hidden influence, something massive, unseen, lurking beyond the edge of the Kuiper belt, gently nudging both bodies into position. A few scientists quietly began calling it the puppeteer hypothesis. The idea that an external gravitational force, perhaps a dark matter cluster or even an artificial construct, was guiding their paths like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. Others refused to even entertain the notion, calling it numerical pareidolia, the human tendency to find patterns where none exist. But as data continued to stream in, the coincidences multiplied. The objects' relative speeds decelerated in sync. Their energy emissions fluctuated in matching intervals. Even their light signatures pulsed with a rhythm, as though one was answering the other. One physicist from Cambridge summarized it best. "We are watching two interstellar objects perform a dance choreographed by something we can't see." For centuries, humanity had trusted math as the language of the cosmos, clean, pure, unambiguous. But in the space between Atlas and the giant, those numbers were whispering a new truth. Maybe the universe wasn't just following its equations. Maybe it was writing them, right in front of us. Theories from the fringe, ancient probes or artificial arcs. When science hits a wall, imagination fills the void. As official institutions stayed silent, fringe communities, independent researchers, and even respected astrophysicists began to voice theories that once belonged only to fiction. The most compelling idea was as ancient as it was unsettling, that 3I Atlas and Hyper-Rogue X1 were not natural wanderers, but relics. Machines, perhaps, from civilizations that predated us by millions of years. The Bracewell probe hypothesis resurfaced first, a concept proposed decades ago by scientist Ronald Bracewell. He speculated that an advanced species might send autonomous messengers across the stars, designed to observe, record, and even awaken when they encountered intelligent life. Some theorists now wondered if that's exactly what we were witnessing. Probes that had been adrift for eons, programmed to converge only when the right conditions were met. Others pointed to the von Neumann model, the self-replicating probe, a machine that builds copies of itself from planetary materials, spreading like cosmic spores. If 3I Atlas and X1 were part of such a lineage, their synchronized movement might be the mechanical instinct of creation, two fragments of a vast, ancient network finally reconnecting. But beyond the mechanical theories, a deeper, more haunting idea began to emerge. What if they were arcs? Not weapons, not probes, but vessels, carrying something through interstellar night. Some speculated they could be the remains of civilizations escaping dying stars, frozen in time, still holding the DNA or digital ghosts of their makers. The strange radiation emissions and adaptive orbits suddenly took on new meaning. They weren't accidents. They were signals, or awakenings. Skeptics argued these ideas stretched reason too far, but even they struggled to explain the object's composition, symmetry, and synchronization. As one researcher from Kyoto put it, if nature built this, then nature just learned to code. Every discovery humanity ever made about the cosmos had reinforced one truth, that we were small, observers on the edge of something vast. But if even a fraction of these theories were true, then for the first time we weren't just looking into the universe. The universe might be looking back, through artifacts it sent long before we learned how to see. The signal event, it began as static, faint, meaningless noise buried in the background hum of the cosmos. Radio telescopes in Chile, Spain, and Australia picked it up within the same hour, an odd rhythmic pulse echoing from the region where 3I Atlas and Hyper-Rogue X1 were slowly converging. At first, no one paid attention. Space was full of noise, bursts from pulsars, solar flares, and distant quasars. But this wasn't like anything they'd heard before. The signal wasn't random. It was structured. the intervals repeated with mathematical precision. 5 pulses, then 3, then 5 again. A symmetrical pattern, deliberate, intentional. Over the next several days, observatories around the world confirmed the anomaly. The signal was growing stronger, not weaker, as if responding to the two objects' approach. When analysts plotted the frequencies against time, a chilling image appeared on the data graphs. A mirrored pattern, as though one object was transmitting and the other was answering. NASA remained silent, but smaller research teams released their data online. The analysis revealed that the pulses carried harmonic overtones, frequencies nested within frequencies, forming ratios eerily similar to hydrogen spectral lines, the very building blocks of communication proposed in early SETI models. In other words, whoever or whatever created it knew how to speak the universal language of physics. Then came the most extraordinary moment. As 3I Atlas and Hyper Rogue X1 drew within their closest projected distance, the rhythm shifted. The pulse condensed into a single sustained tone, a low resonant hum that persisted for exactly 12 minutes. Instruments worldwide recorded identical readings, the tone oscillating ever so slightly, as though conveying a final command. And then, silence. The moment the objects aligned, every trace of the signal vanished. No afterglow, no fading echo, no residual radiation. It was as if the message had been delivered, and the senders no longer needed to speak. Later, when analysts replayed the data at increased speed, they noticed something no one could explain. Hidden in the signal's final seconds was a faint modulation, a pattern resembling coordinates. But they didn't point to the approaching objects. They pointed somewhere else entirely, deeper, beyond the system's edge. The cosmic convergence on the outer rim of the solar system, where sunlight fades into darkness, the two interstellar travelers finally met. Y Atlas and Hyper Rogue X1, the Wanderer and the Giant, crossed paths in a slow, deliberate motion that felt less like collision and more like choreography. The event lasted only minutes. Yet telescopes worldwide captured data that defied comprehension. Spectrometers recorded a surge of electromagnetic energy, unlike anything seen before. A flash without light, a wave without heat. Space itself seemed to ripple. The objects didn't strike or fragment. Instead, they passed through one another's gravitational fields with impossible precision, their movements synchronized like two gears in a vast invisible mechanism. For a brief instant, their energy signatures merged, creating a pulse that radiated across the solar system, a whisper of power that even reached instruments orbiting Earth. And then, stillness.NASA's live feeds went black mid-transmission. The European Southern Observatory's data stream cut to static. Only a handful of independent telescopes continued recording, capturing the faint afterglow of something fading into silence. When the systems came back online, both objects were gone. No debris, no trace. Only the faint distortion of gravity left behind, as if the space they had occupied was momentarily rewritten. In the aftermath, time itself seemed to hesitate. Instruments recalibrated, clocks lagged by microseconds, and signals from deep space probes briefly desynchronized. It was as though the convergence had touched something fundamental, the invisible fabric holding everything together. Then, from the darkness beyond Neptune, one final transmission appeared in the data logs. A pulse, identical to the one recorded before the convergence. It was faint, but it wasn't fading. It was moving, accelerating away from the solar system, carrying with it whatever secret the two interstellar travelers had shared. The sky had blinked, and when it opened again, humanity realized it had just witnessed something impossible. Not a collision, not a coincidence, but a conversation between worlds. Aftermath and speculation. In the days that followed, confusion rippled through the scientific world. Major agencies offered brief, sanitized statements, an observational anomaly, a probable data synchronization error. Yet behind closed doors, leaked reports told a different story. Instruments across multiple continents had recorded identical gravitational distortions. Something real had happened, and nobody could explain it. News outlets struggled to frame the event. Some called it the cosmic convergence. Others, more cautious, avoided the story altogether. But independent observatories stood firm. Their data was clear. Two interstellar objects had not just met, they had interacted. The question was how. A few theorists proposed magnetic coupling or dark matter resonance. Others, far bolder, suggested the event was intentional, a transmission, not of radio or light, but through space-time itself. The missing debris, the vanished energy signatures, the synchronized course corrections, all pointed to behavior that bordered on intelligent. And then came the final twist. A research team in Japan reported detecting a faint, repeating pulse near the heliopause, the boundary where our solar system ends. It matched the same signal pattern heard before the convergence, only now it was moving outward faster than before. For those who believed in coincidence, the mystery was over. For everyone else, it had only just begun. Humanity had looked into the dark and seen something looking back, and it was already leaving. The watchers beyond long after the headlines faded. A quiet unease lingered among those who had watched the skies that night. The data was archived, debated, dismissed. Yet every so often, when the instruments fell silent and the static softened, astronomers swore they could still detect a faint echo of that signal, pulsing like a heartbeat from beyond the stars. Humanity had witnessed an event that rewrote the boundaries of the known universe. Two objects from distant worlds had met, not by chance, but by design. Whether they were machines, remnants, or something far older, their purpose remained a riddle carved in motion. And as the last traces of their energy faded into the void, one truth became impossible to ignore. We had not been observing a collision, but a conversation. Across observatories, late-night researchers began referring to them simply as the Watchers. Silent travelers that moved with intent, as if recording, learning, or waiting. No one knew if they were ancient relics, active probes, or something entirely beyond comprehension. But one haunting detail united every theory. The signal had not vanished. It had simply changed direction. It was now moving away, toward the edge of the galaxy. And somewhere in that cold, endless dark, whatever had sent them might finally know we were here. Because messages are only sent to those meant to receive them. And maybe, after all this time, we were never alone, only being watched from afar, waiting for our turn to answer.